Okie dokie. Hold on, what's this mug? Come on, I know you chose this mug. Jeez, dude. Of course it's a meme mug.
I did it. It was not even on purpose, but
You didn't do it. No, that's just your life. Your whole life is memes.
I only have like nerdy mugs. Like I have a Zelda mug here.
That's a cool mug, actually. Okay.
I have an Opeth one.
Okay, guy with mugs on his desk. Let's.
Yeah.
So, okay, that paints me a nice picture of your recording desk. Is like just lots of mugs over here, and then really nice guitars over here. That's it.
Exactly. Coffee mugs, glasses of wine, sheets of paper, and cat toys.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Wait. So the cat toys are there in memory of the cats, or are the cats now at your house sometimes?
No, they're never here. It's just like I took some of their favorite toys with me, and I have them in front of me, just so I can think of them every once in a while. They stink and they're very dirty, but they're here.
Yeah, my cats stink and are very dirty and are here as well, so I understand completely.
I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
Happy for you.
Yeah, I'm very grateful. Usually they're sitting right here on this desk, or they're smashing me in the balls asking to be on my lap, so it's one or the other. It's great.
Yeah. Is the smelly one around right now?
No, he's sleeping in the living room, I think. Yeah,
Okay,
he'll come by though. During this video,
cameo,
he's gonna show up, and I'll display him for all the world to see. It'll be great. It'll be awesome. All right, dude. So, Romain, you are in the band Omnerod, and Omnerod was started in 2009, if I remember correctly, and you guys are based in Belgium. Tell me a little bit about the band and like how you got started and why you made a band, and just make it kind of a little bit about that.
So I was not part of the original lineup of the band. So the band was formed by, I think it was 3 very young friends from Brussels back in 2009. And I only joined in 2011. I was 16 years old. And the other guys were roughly the same age. And it was, at this point, it was 3 of us. I was just playing guitar back then. I was not a singer whatsoever. And we recorded and released Ivory Dune, just jamming the 3 of us in a rehearsal space.
Okay.
After which one of the guys left the band. He was the singer and guitar player, and so I decided to take over for the vocal duties, and then the rest happened like organically with Pablo, who's the only original member in the band still, who was there in 2009, and myself.
So Pablo plays bass. He's one of the original members. Is that
Pablo
right?
is the drummer.
Oh, my mistake.
Pablo is the drummer, and he's the one of the original members. Yeah.
Okay, so you joined the band when you were 16. Why did you join the band? Like, were you looking for a project? Because I think you were doing YouTube before that, right? Or was that after?
I was very much a bedroom guitar player, just recording cover songs and playing guitar for myself, and still playing Guitar Hero on a regular basis.
Yes,
and
dude.
actually, I stumbled upon an ad that was posted by the guys in Omnerod, and I was like, they were asking for a progressive metal guitar player, and I was very much into progressive metal at that time already, and so I was like, why not? But I was still pretty conflicted about it because I didn't want to commit to anything. And then my mom, the same night, she told me, I stumbled upon an ad, a young band in Brussels looking for a guitar player for progressive metal stuff. Isn't that what you're playing? And I was like, okay, that's maybe a sign that my mom brought this up the same day I saw this ad. So I sent a message, and the guys were very happy, and we decided to carry on together after that.
Holy cow. Yeah. We would say that that's kismet, or that's like a match made in heaven, or, there's like a lot of ways to say that, but your mom saw the same ad that you did, and you were like, okay, that's the universe telling me, like, if I don't do this.
Basically, that's what happened. Yeah.
Dude, that's really cool. So you were 16 years old. You had been doing YouTube. You were doing prog metal. What's funny is I remember in the kind of 2007 to 2014, probably like that window, I remember so many bedroom prog metal musicians who had webcams and incredible skills on the guitar just flooding YouTube. There was like the Drusiv Stalins. There was the Jason Richardsons. There's like these people who really were getting so many more opportunities in life because they were just making content on YouTube. bands were reaching out to them. I mean, Jason Richardson at one point was playing for like All That Remains or All Shall Perish or a bunch of these like kind of wildly big touring bands. And if I remember correctly, not to make it about him, but he kind of was doing the YouTube thing for a while. Yeah, so that's really cool that you found a band that way too. So now you're basically, as far as I understand it, you're kind of like the lead guy for Omnerod, right? You're like kind of in charge of where the band's going and what it's doing.
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm doing all the heavy work on my own, but most the artistic and creative decisions, I'm the one responsible for them. Have a lot of luck. Very happy to be surrounded by Andre and Pablo, who are very much tech savvy and help me out on the technical side of things. But I would consider that the initial input in everything we do creatively comes from me, and then the other guys have their say, of course, if they have something to say about it. But the final word, I think, comes back to me eventually.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, that's the case now. Yeah.
Okay, well, so it's kind of funny because I feel like my band is a little bit similar, where we discuss topics and like motifs and themes, and maybe even share music with one another that we think should inspire our future direction, or like, oh man, look how this is produced. The production on this album is so good. I wonder who did the mix and master. Let's see if we can work with them. You know, conversations like that kind of come up, but ultimately I'm kind of leading the charge of how the band continues to move forward, seizing opportunities, writing new albums. And it's not always the case, but that's just kind of generally speaking, I help kind of move it forward. And so I think that I identify that with you as well. One of the questions that I had for you, because you now have been part of 4 albums with Omnerod, is that right? You got
That's correct. Yeah.
Ivory Dune, Arteries, Construction, and Mental Rise, right?
Yeah, correct.
Can you give me an idea of like what one of your favorite moments musically or vocally is from the Immensal Rise? Like what's one spot that you're just like, dude, this part always hits so right?
I would say vocally, probably the 2 moments I'm most proud of are the climax at the end of the Immensal Rise, which is basically a 2-minute vocal build-up with a very dramatic instrumental behind it, which was very difficult to record, but we made it work with a couple of iterations. We deleted a lot of it and we recorded it again because we're not happy with it. And it was a very personal section in the song, so it was kind of tough to record, but eventually I think the result is very good.
Okay.
And another climax moment, which is basically the last vocal section on the album, which is on halfway through the Commensal Fall, where I think most of the song was just like very violent, pummeling, aggressive death metal sounding style. And then there's this kind of opening, kind of epic melodic section wrapping up the lyrical themes of the album. I think it works very well within the context of the song, and it's a good way to end the album lyrically, I think.
Dude, that's great to hear. I'm gonna have to focus in on those and have a listen to them specifically. So like that was like the most recent full length, but you also have a kind of a single that you released, Panspermia. First of all, what does this word mean? I don't even know what this word is.
Panspermia is a scientific concept that describes the way life can be spread out from a planet to another one through asteroids, through objects in the in space, basically through meteors and stuff like that. So some scientific argue that this is how life was actually brought to Earth.
Okay.
Like first, not actual life forms, but chemical compounds and maybe even DNA from another place of the universe to Earth through an asteroid.
Okay.
And that was so. It's a song that was initially recorded and written for the first album, and we were very young, and so we wrote lyrics that were very much about stuff we thought were cool. Stuff we thought was just cool, like neat scientific ideas and nerdy stuff, and this is just one of them. So there was not much, I believe there was not much like metaphor behind the song initially. just like describing this phenomenon of spreading life across the universe, basically.
That's pretty cool. I like the way that I like the concept because it's fun to learn that there's like a word that describes a big idea, a complex idea like that. But also the way that you describe how it kind of made you excited to learn about it, and then you just kind of built lyrics and like a motif using that concept. This is basically how our band initially got started, as we discovered the Kardashev scale. And we were which is, oh boy, you're gonna test me now, dude. It's been like 15 years since I thought about it. Which is the theoretical, or I should say, it's the hypothetical theory. I don't even know if I'm saying this correctly, of how a civilization could grow based on its energy consumption from just its local planet to then its local star to then its local group, and then eventually to a galaxy. So it's kind of like, I think if I were to illustrate it, it would be like where we are now. We live on one planet and we consume all of the non-renewables and some of the renewable resources. This is really good for you because you're a sustainability guy. That's like your whole thing. So I love that you asked me this. I feel like I'm in the hot seat now. And then so that's the first one. That's a tier 1. And then tier 2 is, can we fully harness the power of our star, right? Like that could be through light energy, that could be through forms of radiation that we have to use, ways to detect, but mostly like photovoltaic energy. And then the third would be, can we do all the stars in our galaxy and figure out how to leverage all of that light and energy and stuff? And then by having that, it allows us to afford greater and greater technology. So for you, panspermia was just one concept that you wanted to pursue writing a song around. Is that kind of the way that Omnerod works? You guys just look at things that are inspiring and write about it? Or do you have a greater lore, a greater story being told that you can blend all of the albums together and kind of find references to?
So I think the first album, Ivory Dune, it was very much, I was not in charge of writing lyrics for most of the album. And some of the lyrics on there, I'm still not completely sure what they're about, but they were very much metaphorical in a lot of ways. So it's pretty obscure. You don't think you could guess what it's about just by reading those. But I think they were rooted in fantasy and sci-fi and science and mythology a bit more than what came after that. Probably Daniel, who was the one writing the stuff back then, he probably has a more personal connection to those lyrics, but they were written through metaphors. And I think as we go on, as we progress, essentially the lyrics are just becoming more and more personal. Every song, every theme of every song is something that's personal to me nowadays. I don't think I would be good at writing something that's not personal. I don't think I would like to write something that's completely fictional, that would be political either. It's probably just a way to manifest the way I feel at a given time.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's still a bit metaphorical. I mean, Diamantal Rise is in a lot of ways it's still pretty much rooted in metaphors and images, but every song has a very deep and personal meaning behind it nowadays.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to enjoy the act of creation.
Agreed.
There's like a big difference between, hey, I'm going to hire you to do a job, and the value that it's worth is the payment you receive. Whereas oftentimes creators, especially those who don't make a great deal of money from their art, they do it because the act of creating the art lets them express or reflect or sort of dig deeper into their own thoughts, but then also have this sort of bundle of creativity that they can then reference later. It could be a painting, it could be a song, it could be a poem. So the fact that you basically are using the process of creating music to interpret how you're feeling at that time, whether it fits in with the greater concept of Omnerod or whatever the project might be, that's not really as important. But that kind of brings up a question, which is, did you start by writing the song Panspermia and then applying your thoughts into the lyrics, or did you have an idea about the lyrics and then you wrote a song to kind of follow that? Kind of which one came first in this example?
That's a good question. I think we knew back then. We knew we wanted to write a song about this, and we knew we wanted it to be the last song on the album and to be the longest song on the album. So we wanted to write kind of an epic on that theme, and we wanted it to sound a bit spacey, which was the case on the first version of the song. We had these weird like alien synth, cheesy gent riffs and everything that sounded very much 2010 sci-fi.
Yes.
But I think in general for us it depends. Sometimes I have song ideas before the songs are written, like lyrical ideas before the songs are written. And sometimes it's the other way around. But lately, I think in most cases, I know what the song is going to sound like, and I know what the song is going to talk about before I have written the first note,
Ooh,
which
wow.
was not the case back in the day.
Yeah. So now you just kind of, you think about what you want. You also have like a style in mind. And then you kind of do everything sort of in a block versus writing a song 10 years ago that you never used and then thinking, oh, this would be a good topic to explore because of the sound of the song or the way the lyrics are. Yeah, I kind of do this. I kind of try to do the same thing. I play the familiar stuff to myself because I really use like guitar as like a way to like soothe and a way to pass time, but also to slow down and be in the moment. But then through that exploration, through that feeling, it'll like inspire me to make a riff that maybe leads us towards the next song or the next album idea.
Right.
And that kind of brings up an interesting subject too, which is a lot of your fans have said that you kind of blend the sort of sonic or lyric or even vocal values of like Devin Townsend, Meshuggah, BT Bam, Gojira. If you had to like nail it down, what would be like the three sort of big inspirations would you say you have?
I mean, that was pretty close.
Well, that's the internet for you.
That was pretty close. I mean, obviously, Devin Townsend is both a huge influence and inspiration, and also an artist I respect a lot in the way he views his creative output. So not only in the music he puts out, but also the way he works in general is very inspiring to me. So I would say Devin Townsend and Strapping Young Lad, his projects are very influential to me. I would say Meshuggah is probably one of, if not my favorite band, but it's very punctual that it comes up in our music. I think it's not a huge inspiration in the way we write, but I'm thinking every progressive metal band nowadays is influenced by Meshuggah, whether they know it or not.
Sure.
So they're part of the scene now, just like Metallica and Slayer were like 40 years ago.
Yes.
Even bands who hated Metallica, they were still influenced by them. So I would say Devin Townsend and Meshuggah.
Yeah.
And a third spot would be difficult because all of them are kind of fighting against each other based on the moments of my life. Probably Leprous or BT Bam. Leprous for the melodic, like the way they blend melodic catchiness and rhythmical intricacies. I think it's very interesting because they have very complex stuff they make seem like it's kind of simple sometimes, even though it's clearly not. And they brought back, I think, some kind of vulnerability in progressive music and personal input in progressive music, which I felt was a bit lacking in the early 2010s. And BT Bam is not a band I listen to a whole lot. I do listen to them quite a bit, but not as much as other bands. But I think them and Opeth. Opeth also is obviously a very big influence. Yeah,
totally.
But there are two bands that manage to blend death metal and beautiful, clean sections in a way that was very, very inspiring for us when we were younger. And I think that's, even though that's not a conscious influence nowadays, they made it possible for us to think that it could be done, basically. So
absolutely.
in that way, they were huge influences for us, BT Bam and Opeth.
That's cool to hear, because I think a lot of the sort of progressive metal bands that exist these days and are trying to grow and develop a community and a following and stuff, they really do kind of intersect the concept of like progressive and metal by blending like brutal with beautiful. That kind of seems to be the two categories that get blended. I mean, we try to do that and we're considered progressive metal, so there's like a similarity there. But one thing that I've always thought of, again, kind of going back to like the panspermia, the science, the STEM sort of perspective, the science and technology perspective, is that your influences are really kind of like recessive and dominant traits in your personal life that you then carry forward, and you find the intersection of those, which is Omnerod. And that's also, you know, Andre and Pablo as well, of course. But those influences are the deciding factors on whether or not the sound of your music would be what it is. And that's not really uncommon knowledge, but when you think about it through the lens of how we come to understand dominant and recessive traits in like people, whether their eyes are blue or brown or their hair is blonde or brown or things of that nature, you can kind of look backwards. And so for you to draw inspiration from Opeth, BTBM, Gojira, Devin Townsend, all that kind of stuff, it helps people understand that you found the intersecting point. And funnily enough, I feel like your vocal style is most closely resembling that of Devin Townsend of all the bands that you named. Do you have? Can you explain maybe why or something like that?
Well, I think the simple answer to that is that I think he's a fucking amazing singer, and that he was the one when I was learning to sing, which is not that long ago. He was the one I was listening to the most. And as usual, my way of working on music is by covering stuff. That's how I progress. That's how I become a better technician, and I discover new techniques and everything. And so I did cover quite a bit of Devin Townsend and a bit of Leprous as well. But their vocal styles are kind of similar in a way, I think. Kind of personal and very operatic. And I also very much enjoyed the way Devin Townsend managed to sound very melodic and heartfelt, even when being very aggressive.
Yes.
This kind of melodic fry vocal style he has was very intriguing to me, and that's also the type of harsh vocals I've been working on. So both separately, I would say cleans and harsh vocals were just like Devin Townsend was a massive influence on both of them. But that's the main reason why. And I think I also, but that's probably just a coincidence, but I discovered that the way I sing best is by pushing myself physically and in terms of volume, in terms of the way I could feel internally when I'm singing, to not stop at what's comfortable. And I know that Devin Townsend works pretty much the same way. So I think that's also maybe a thing that makes me not sound like him, of course, but makes our styles similar in a way, because that's the way we approach singing, I think.
Yeah. You know, it's cool that you talk about pushing yourself vocally, but also being inspired by Devin Townsend. I also had a moment of inspiration from him, not necessarily from the singing aspect, because I can't do what he does, is singing. But I watched him do a live stream on Twitch like years ago where he wrote a song in 2 hours. And, but it wasn't just writing the song. Like he had the ideas, he had the lyrics, he had the vocals like kind of lined out in his mind, and he did the whole thing live in 2 hours. And like that was super inspirational, to the point where I wanted to kind of also feel if I could get through that exercise. I wanted to try it. So I went off and I also did a live stream, and I tried to write a song in an hour. I did 1 hour because I was writing a simpler song, not what Devin does, because I didn't do vocals or anything. But I tried to do that too. So I took inspiration there. And I think that like stylistically, I actually do really agree with you that his style, which I think is a fry vocal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that style feels so much more emotional when he can pitch it around and almost sing through it. Oh, it's incredible. I don't know how many times I've watched the EMG playthroughs and like the live, Epic Cloud tour videos that they released and stuff. They're incredible.
Yeah.
Something that kind of comes to mind with this is like the idea of like streaming and stuff as content creators. I know that Omnerod primarily exists as like a studio project, but you guys have done live stuff before. So looking at my notes here, I see that you guys did Prog Power. Tell me a little bit about that and what your plans are for the future.
So it all started during COVID, and we were invited to play for the ProgSpace online festival. So ProgSpace is a prog media. They have been very kind to us throughout the years, and that was our first contact with them. And it was like a play at home kind of streaming
the
festival during
stuff.
COVID. Yes, exactly. And so we did record a live show like in a rehearsal space, and it was streamed during that festival, that online festival. And we kept in touch with the ProgSpace guys after that, and eventually we were invited to play the Prog Power Europe Festival. I think it was 2 years after that, and the ProgSpace guys are also a bit. They have some ties with that festival, and so I think doing the ProgSpace online festival beforehand helped us be booked for that actual physical festival.
Yeah, I'm
2
sure.
years after that, yeah.
Yeah.
And so we played at that festival. We were the first band of the day. We played alongside bands that were friends of ours, Obsidian Tide and ILO, and it was a very, very and a very important moment for us because we were the first band that day, and as prog lovers, as you know, they love discovering new stuff. The venue was packed even at that time, and it was very heartwarming for us because, in other subgenres, I believe people would not have showed up that early. Not as many people. And so the fact that people were very curious and willing to get there early and check us out was great, and we had a very fun time at that festival. And I think there was definitely a before and an after for us at that festival, because we hadn't played in front of, it was like maybe 1,000 people, which is not a huge deal, but for us it definitely was and still is. And it was great. Everyone was very welcoming. So lovely moment. Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge when you get to kind of move away from playing local, or maybe in your guys' case, just going from a studio project to like turning live. Those are huge stepping stones, huge milestones to look back on.
Yeah.
I myself haven't played a show since 2015 until we were invited to play Euroblast in 2024. I think it was 24. Yeah, pretty sure. And in doing that, that was almost 10 years. That was 9 years apart. We didn't have gear set up. We had never practiced with each other. We didn't even live close to each other. Our drummer was in Canada and the rest of us were in Arizona, except the 6 months leading up to it, I had moved to Germany. So now we were even further apart, which made it that much harder. So really quick, I have a kind of question for you regarding equipment and gear and practice and stuff. How difficult was it for you guys to kind of transition from we just kind of do our own thing individually in our studios to, we're going to prepare to like play together live? What was that kind of like?
So the good thing, I think, is that our setup didn't change much. The way we approach our setup didn't change much. I think we were pretty much adapted to smaller venues and smaller gigs, and it works for bigger gigs as well. Everything is digital. We are very adamant about having good in-ear mixes very early on.
Yes.
So there was not like a lot of stuff that needed to be adapted in order to play bigger gigs, which was good. Again, as we mentioned earlier, Andre and Pablo are very tech savvy. They both studied sound engineering, and so Pablo and Andre have been working very hard these last 3 years or so on building a rig I would not be able to explain. A lot of stuff is very obscure for me in that it's basically a cube, a very heavy cube, which I help carrying at every gig.
A very heavy. It's like a Borg cube. Like you want it to move itself. It's so
Exactly.
heavy.
I just
Yeah,
wanted
dude.
to slide, but no, we need to carry it downstairs, and but it's they worked a lot on it, and it's sometimes we're still a bit worried that things might crash or that we might lose some kind of sound in our ears or in the PA or anything. But as we live in the same city or very much closer to one another than what you guys are in Kardashev, it was pretty easy to work on that rig collectively and have something work for all of us. There was not like a moment where we had to meet up and make sure everything was working and that everyone had the right gear or anything. We just met up like every couple of weeks to work on the songs and the gear, so it was very organic in that way.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean that's what I think most bands wind up going through because they don't live as far apart. I think that the sort of trajectory of building a band, and if we were to use you as an example, is like, okay, you're a single musician who wants to learn new techniques and is getting really good at your instrument, and then maybe you decide to make content for the internet, and in doing so, you're on the internet more, and you find an ad for a band who you're like, well, it's maybe not as perfect for me, but I'd like to give it a shot. So then you go for it. And then as a result, you now live in the same city because they're local, right? That's the ads you're looking for. You're not looking for the international ads necessarily.
Yep.
And so then you kind of have those deeper in career conveniences, which is super duper cool. So So from like the live perspective, you guys are like kind of ready to go in the future. What's the future of Omnerod's live presence? Are you trying to do festivals or tours, or what would be like a dream package for you to like go on a tour on? Let's talk about stuff like that.
Yeah. So last year we decided, two of the guys in the band decided it was time for them to take a break. One of them left the band. Anthony left the band because it was not for him anymore, and Pablo just left the country. So he's still part of the band, but not in the band, not playing with the band actively.
Okay.
And so at that time we decided that it was maybe time for a live hiatus, just not play live shows anymore for a while.
Right.
But we've discussed with Andre and we decided that it would be kind of cool to just try and find session musicians, which is something that could not be considered, I think, 5 or 6 years ago for us because we didn't have any traction at that time and we didn't know any people in our local scene that could help us with that. And also it didn't feel like it was worth it for us to invest in that kind of project because the live shows we were playing were not worth that kind of money, paying for session musicians and everything.
Yeah,
but
sure.
now I think it would be a very cool project to play some stuff from The Immensal Rise or probably the entire album live, playing a few select headline shows or co-headlining shows in Europe, and possibly some festivals that we've been very much fans of for quite some time, even as not as bands, of course, but just as an audience. We liked visiting those festivals for years and years and years. Festivals such as Euroblast, which you mentioned, or Arctangent, and Prog Power, which we already played, but still would love to play again. Radar, all this kind of nerd festivals of very eclectic music that I would see myself like rushing on stage and then off stage because I want to check out all the other bands and be part of the audience after my set, you know. That would be amazing. So long story short, I would say that we would like to play again a few gigs this year and next year as well. A few festivals, prog festivals ideally, and a few shows in Europe where we would play the last album in full probably.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I imagine that, you know, in your mind after doing the Prog Power Europe show, you've had did the Immensal Rise come out before that or after that? I don't know the time.
This before, the same year, but a few months before.
Oh, so you were able to already play music from it in a live capacity.
Yep.
Okay. And so now you're thinking like, man, if we could play like the whole album sort of maybe front to back or some version of that in front of people, you think it would be like a really good representation of where Omnerod is and is headed in the live space, right?
Yeah, and I do feel that it's our strongest work to date by far, and I feel like that's the best we have to offer live, playing this album in full. And also, when we were working on the album, like recording it, and when I was writing it, it was always very clear for all of us that this is not something we're going to play live, and that's how I was reassuring the guys in the band, like, don't worry, it's going to be tough in studio, but I'll never ask you to to learn this stuff live. But now I think things changed. I think it's going to be a fun challenge to play that live, and also now that we have this perspective of playing with session musicians, who are kind of starting from scratch. They don't have like they can focus all of their time, their Omnerod time, working on that stuff, as opposed to Anthony and Pablo, who had to also learn the stuff from the previous albums, and also had other implications related to the band. I think that's something we can consider now, playing this thing live. It's probably going to be a train wreck, but I think it's going to be very fun. And and I kind of see that as a cool challenge. Like, if we manage to make this work, that's something we're going to be very proud of, I think, and that's going to be pretty exciting for everyone involved.
Absolutely. I think that's, well, first of all, I think it's really grounded that you have the expectation that there's a high risk of it like kind of being a train wreck, because you're right. The terms by which you wrote the music are not the same as when you now have to perform it as like a 3, 4, maybe 5 piece. I mean, you yourself play guitar and do vocals, and you probably didn't write the riffs with the intent of doing the vocals at the same time, but you're hoping to maybe teach yourself to do that in a live capacity, right? Something that we did with Liminal Right, because again, we had a 9-year span between shows. We didn't expect to ever perform live. We had internal discussions during the writing process telling each other, oh, well, we're never going to have to perform it, so just go ahead and record it however. And it's like you kind of cut corners to like get the end product. But then here I am streaming every so often, playing through the albums, and I'm just like, I have no idea how I'm supposed to play this right now. And then the same thing for Mark, right? When we were deciding to play Euroblast, we were having to come up with a set list. And I was like, oh, these are our bangers. These are the ones that Spotify says like we should play, right? Kind of building a set list off of what people like. And I just remember him replying and being like, dude, there's no way I'm hitting some of those notes. He's like, dude, I'm not built to do that outside of a studio. He's like, I just don't have that kind of voice. And it's not to say he's not capable, because he recorded all these albums, right? He did it. He met the challenge. But it's like practicing for a performance takes a lot more. Yeah, it's way different than just, okay, we're going to have 50 takes, 3 hours. We're going to eat some chicken wings at lunch and then come back and give it another couple goes. You know, it's you have more of like an allowance in the studio capacity.
Yeah, it's hit or miss. It's not hit or miss. You have like trial and error, and you can try again and again and again. When you're playing one show and it's Euroblast like you did, you don't get that much room for error. But did you end up playing those songs?
We ended up playing 2 songs that basically we were all kind of like, I don't know. And the reason that I say 2 is because I think our set was 6 songs. Our songs are kind of long. We played like 6 songs, and 2 of them we said like, hey, these aren't the hardest we have, but they are popular enough that we should put in the effort to try and pull them off in a live capacity.
Yeah.
So like, I think 2 of the songs that we chose for the set list were popular, but 50% of the band didn't write them. So they had to kind of like learn them by ear or from tabs or whatever we had available, and then practice them, because it's not natural for them. They didn't write it. Like you are good at covering because you have a ability to learn other people's techniques and then get good at them. I have never tried to learn how to thump like Tosin Abasi. I'm just like, that's not going to happen. I'm not that guy, right? But Scott Carstairs from Fallujah, he has like a multi-finger tapping thing that I was willing to put in all the effort and the time to kind of learn and figure out. So I think for me, it was a little bit more choosy. But when it comes to like Mark preparing for the live stuff, he was like, listen, guys, I could pull it off on the album, but like, let's pick some of the kind of ones that aren't going to just kill me in one set. That would be great. Now, if you're on
Yeah,
tour
yeah.
or something, you have more time to kind of warm up, keep those
That's
muscles
true.
flexible and stuff. So maybe you would add them towards the end of the tour or something.
That's
Yeah,
true. And
I don't
and
really
there's
know.
also this option for touring that you can maybe have a bit more songs under your belt than what you play every night. And if you see that one of the songs is tougher on you and that you
Maybe
don't
swap it
manage
out
to
or
make it
something.
justice, you swap it out in like mid tour or something. Yeah.
Yeah, if you have that kind of flexibility, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of bands probably don't prepare more than like, I don't know, if they have like a 10-song set list, maybe they prepare like 12 for instances
Hmm.
like that. But
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
ask everybody to know like 25 songs so that you can just kind of free ball pick your set list. However, you know who did that? You already mentioned him, was Leprous and Einar Solberg, right? At
Yeah.
Euroblast in, I think it was 22, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 22. One of the headliners wasn't able to make it to the festival, so Leprous decided, okay, we'll just do the Einar Solberg project set as one of the headlining slots, and then the next day we'll do the Leprous stuff. So they were able to just like pull together two full headliner sets worth of material for
Yeah.
one festival. Unreal, dude.
That's not
Incredible.
surprising. And I mean, I've actually spoken with the Leprous guys less than a week ago. I was in midwinter Prague with Ilo, and so we discussed with Leprous as well. And I mean, it's pretty well known now that they swap set lists quite frequently, at least a couple of songs every night. And every musician in the band, they need to know, I think currently it's like 57 songs that
Oh
they have
my
under their belt. And
dude.
they need to be able to swap them out like every night if needed.
Oh my gosh.
Um, and the funny thing is that they do this like kind of by request or audience choice every once in a while. Like they ask the audience to choose
Whoa.
in between like 3 or 4 songs. And some of them are like obscure cuts that are very hard to play and that they need to know how to play, but yet the audience keep choosing the same very popular songs every time. So it's kind of like they need to know these songs that will never be played just in case one night the audience chooses them or something.
Yeah, so that's funny you say that. A couple parallels that I find is that I also have about 60 songs in my catalog that Kardashev
Oof.
can pull from. Not all of them are full songs, some of are interludes and stuff, but there are 60. And every time I stream and ask for requests, somebody asks for one of the ones that I'm just like, really? That like deep cut that's like super old and it sounds like back in our original deathcore days because it's from our demo. So it doesn't even have a lot of the elements that I'm like kind of like trying to focus on now. I have to like turn
Yeah.
my brain back onto like spacey deathcore and like that's it. So it's really funny that
Spacey
happens
deathcore.
to other musicians too. They get asked to play the deep cut that nobody knows. That's really funny.
Mm,
We
mm,
were
mm.
talking about gear there for a little bit about like the live rig and how you're doing guitar and vocals. Talk to me about your guitars really quick. What do you got? What do you play? Which one's your favorite? Tell me about that.
So I'm a 7 string guitar player.
Damn straight, dude. Me
Yeah,
too.
fuck yeah, 7 string live. I think it's a very good compromise because you can tune pretty low, especially if you're using multi-scale, which is something I use for lower, so higher, longer necks, and so lower tunings because
Hmm.
tension is handled a bit better.
Yes.
So 7 string is a good compromise. You can tune pretty low; it's still pretty comfortable to play.
Hmm.
And I've tried 8 strings every once in a while. It's not. I don't have very big hands, so 7 strings is comfortable for me.
I know this feeling. Yep.
Yeah, and also something I learned quite recently, like on the last album probably, is that I don't want. I like the bass to be an octave lower than the guitar, and to me, G tuning is the absolute lowest you could go on the guitar and still have that bass an octave lower. If you go
Hmm.
below G, so like in 8 string territory, there's no point in having the bass an octave lower, and they essentially become the same octave, and that's something I think is less interesting in terms of mix and dynamics.
Okay.
So I'm pretty much a 7 string guitar player, and I would say my two main weapons are an Omsby, which is a more affordable guitar, but very well built. So Ormsby is famous for the very heavy multi-scale they do. It's a very
Hmm.
strong multi-scale neck. and it's sounding very aggressive. So that's what I use for live shows.
Okay.
Because I'm not afraid to hit it on something, or it's a more affordable yet very, very strong guitar. And for home stuff and for studio, I'm using an Aristides, which I'm still afraid to bring out on tour.
Hell, dude, I'm the same
Aristides.
way. I didn't want to play it, but I was like, I have to show people it's a cool guitar, but I also didn't want to take it with me.
Yeah, it plays very well and it sounds amazing, but I'm like, I think it should stay at home.
Yep. Or you have to take out an insurance policy for it before you put it in anywhere outside of the house. Dude, so this happened to me. I got my Aristides, and like 3 months later we had to fly to Canada to film a music video. And I contacted the airline because it was international, and I didn't know much about traveling with guitars and stuff. And so I called him and I was like, hey, I plan on bringing this with me. Do I carry it on? Because it has an internal battery. It's one of the rechargeable Fishmans. I said, it has an internal battery, so I can't put it in the belly of the plane. And the person said, you can't bring guitars into Canada. And I was like, why not? And they said, there's a restriction on the wood and bringing products with certain kinds of wood. And I was like, what? But people tour... This makes no sense, you know? And so I argued with them. I was like, there's no wood on the instrument.
It's not wood.
Yeah, there's no wood, right? And they're like, oh, it doesn't matter. You can't bring it in. You're going to have problems. It's going to be stuck at customs. I was like, dude, I cannot believe this is what they're telling me. I can't imagine what other musicians have to go through. Okay. So fast forward, I leave the guitar at home, go to Canada, and I have to borrow this like Halo guitar 7-string that's like red, and it doesn't fit my hand right. It's not multi-scale. There's like a lot of things that are weird, and I had to just kind of like be comfortable with it on the spot for the sake of filming the video. Luckily, it wasn't recording. It was just miming, but still, it just looks kind of funny to me. So that was my one experience with trying to travel with the Aristides. And then when I moved to Germany, like a year or so, 2 years later, I just carried it on, and I just never even told anybody. I didn't bring it up, and I was like, oh, it's my guitar. And they're like, oh, you have to check it. And I was like, I can't, there's a battery inside. And they're like, oh, okay, go ahead. And they just let me on the plane, no problem. I put it on the overhead. Easy, dude.
Phew, yeah.
I wish I would have known that.
Way easier, yeah. Mine is, like, you can see it behind me, like over here.
Yeah.
It's in its gig bag, and the gig bag says Aristides. Mm-hmm. And if like I even feel like walking around with that is not safe.
I know what you mean. It's like walking around with a Rolex. You're like, I better have a security guard, right? It's kind of the Rolex of the guitar world in some ways. I think you could argue that with like, you know, like a 69 Les Paul Custom with PAFs or something. Yeah. Obviously, there's differences, but like, yeah, it's like the car you only want to take out on the weekends because you want to keep it clean and nice, but you also want to kind of like impress a friend now and then. I totally get it. Yeah, it's part of the reason I really like just streaming from home. It's like, oh, I don't have to worry about a random drunk dude like tripping on it and like stepping right into the neck or something. God. Oh, dude.
Yeah, that's an absolute nightmare. And I also let me put it out for you.
Yeah, please do. Dude, he's about to pull it out. Oh my God. The last time I heard a dude tell me he was about to pull it out, I had to call the police. Look at this thing.
I also was like, I'm spending this much money on a guitar. I might as well make it very personal. So I had the Omnerod logo here as an inlay.
Oh man,
which
awesome.
Makes it probably like unsellable for now. I couldn't. No one would ever buy that now, but it's. I'm very happy with this guitar. It's so lightweight.
Okay.
And I never was a big fan before this guitar. I never was very much into headless guitars.
Right.
But I decided to visit Aristides headquarters one day because it's in the Netherlands and I live in Belgium. So I was like, might as well just go over there and just see how it's made. And I asked them for a tour of the factory and everything. And they made me try a few guitars. And I tried this 7-string headless. And I was like, okay, that's the best playing guitar I've ever tried. So that's the one. So I saved up and bought one, I think a year after that or something.
Okay, so before you put the guitar away or anything, hold on to it. I want to say a few things. Number one, having the logo put in the guitar probably 75% of the buyers who are in the market for a guitar at that price, they're not even going to want yours. They're just going to want to buy their own with their logo probably on it, right?
Probable. That's
There's
very
that kind of
plausible,
thing.
yeah.
The second thing is, I think we should do one of the factory invite events one year together when they're like, hey, you're invited to come to the factory tour. We should both just go,
yeah.
dude. Let's just go there.
Yeah, we should meet up
Yes,
over there.
dude, let's do that. It would be so sick.
And
Okay.
decide on how we're going to spend the next like $4,000 the year after that.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Okay, and then I'm going to grab mine because this is crazy. Until right now, even though I follow you on socials, until right now, I didn't realize that we have the same exact Aristides except for they're inverted. Look at this. Look.
Oh, really?
Okay, you ready? Are you ready?
Oh, twinsies! Amazing.
And I'm a piece of shit, so I got my logo on the 12th fret too. It's the same fucking guitar.
Oh, we're such posers.
Dude, we're such posers. The only difference is I only have one knob instead of two, and I 3D printed my own knob because I'm a piece of shit.
Oh, fucking awesome.
Dude, is that crazy?
That's amazing. And you have golden hardware as well. And the inlays is gold as well, right?
Yeah, it's actually it's hard to see on the camera, but it's gold flake on black resin. So like if you look at this here, it's a
amazing.
Glitter. Yeah, it's kind of cool, right? It's just so sick.
Yeah.
And then did you get the internal battery, or do you have to put a battery in yours?
I don't have a battery. I'm using passive pickups.
Oh, which kind of pickups did you get?
The Lundgren Black Havens.
Lundgren, yes. I just went for the Fishman Fluence Moderns because there was a lot of hype around them when I was kind of looking at the order sheet, and I had never tried them before. But a friend of mine who's like a really big pickup nerd, he's all into like tone and like even like traditional amps. He has like a wall of amps and this sort of patch bay where you can just flick a button and it will route a different head to a different cab. And then a different head to and he can do all of that to just tone compare. Well, the same thing is true with guitars. He loves switching pickups like every week. And he told me, he's like, dude, if you ever buy a new guitar, you have to get the Fishman Fluence Moderns because they're programmed, like they program them in the shop before they install them in the guitar, so that they have this very particular like EQ to them. Yep. And then he also told me of the like 6 custom guitars that he has, he's like, you have to get the Aristides if you have the money. He's like, I have this one, this one, this one, this one. I've had them for years. I've never played anything better than the Aristides. Now, this is not a paid ad for those of you that are listening right now. I think we just accidentally wound up in this very ironic situation having the same instruments by the same company.
But still, Aristides
it's still gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. Very, very expensive for almost anyone and everyone. But I mean, if you get the chance, the opportunity, like, go for it. Basically.
Yeah, go at least try it. The first time that I experienced it was at NAMM one year. I went to their booth and I was actually afraid to like pull it off the wall because I was like, this thing it looks like a Ferrari. I don't want to touch it. I don't have the money to replace it. But the guy was like, hey, yeah, come, like, grab it, like, try it, like, pull, do this thing. So I sat there with one of their just kind of normal 7 strings with a head and all that. And I remember playing it and thinking, like, this is lighter than I expected. It also feels well made. And the hardware that was on it really, like, told me that there was, like, a quality value to it. And then when the rep started talking to me and he's like, yeah, there's no wood on this. I was like, well, then what's it made of? And he's like, it's kind of like 3D printed in a way, but we have our own special procedure and our own material. And I was like, dude, it's the future. And we already talked about panspermia and the Kardashev scale. And I was like, oh, he said future. He said sci-fi. I have to own one of these. It was that simple, dude. Just wild.
Yeah, I mean, it's and the guys in Aristides are very nice as well.
Yeah,
like,
I would love to meet them.
Super nice, yeah.
I would love to. I met one of them at Euroblast, which was super cool because I was actually asking him like what string gauge I should put on this because I downtuned to drop A. And he's so cool, dude. He's like, hold on, let me get my laptop. He grabs his laptop and he opens up this like website, and it's their own proprietary string gauge measuring tool thing based on your scale. And the cool part was he pulled up my order So he was like, oh, let me look at the guitar you bought. And he's like, oh, okay, you have this and this and this. And he just like pops all the numbers in. And he's like, yeah, you just need a custom set of strings. He's like, here's your poundage, here's your gauges. And I was like, this is crazy. That's what I wound up doing. It's really sick, dude.
Bitch.
Science, motherfucker. Yeah, science, bitch. What is that? Jesse
Pinkman, yeah.
Jesse Pinkman. Okay, so that was really fun. That's going to be my favorite segment of this whole podcast, is just nerding out about that. For those of you that are listening to this instead of watching it, if you want to see the guitars, there is a link to the YouTube where you can go check out the video. Okay, let's take a breather for a second. We kind of deviated from Omnerod. What's one of your most memorable fan engagements or reactions? It could have been like an album review, a song review, a comment someone left. Maybe you played live and a fan came up and was like, dude, I just came in my pants, or like whatever happened. What's a cool story that you can remember?
I mean, in general, obviously, like people showing appreciation for what we do, whether that's after a live show or on the socials or YouTube or anything. I mean, that always means a lot to me. People buying our stuff as well. I mean, it's always still feeling pretty surreal to me in a lot of ways. I really liked people trying to decipher what the Amensel Rise was about, like on Reddit forums and stuff, like people being very much into the lyrics and themes of the album and trying to figure out what everything was about. But honestly, one of the moments that felt the craziest to me, like ever, in terms of Omnerod fandom was right after we released Ivory Dune. So we had basically like 4 fans, and 3 of those were like our parents.
Yeah, of course, dude.
It was like no one knew we even existed, and we just released that like in the internet like ether, and nothing happened for the next 5 years or so. But we one day decided to just like search for Omnerod on Google and see what comes up. And there was this book that was written by a not very well-known author, and the guy in the story was like putting on some music and listening to Eye of Koala by Omnerod, which is a song that we released on Ivory Dune. So we were quoted in that book. And the guy was describing his listening experience, listening to the song and stuff like that. And that felt like super weird. It was like watching ourselves from an outside perspective. Like
yes.
A guy decided to include our music into his book, even though like no one had heard of us. So I think that's still the most surreal.
That is very
kind
surreal.
Of fan encounter we had, yeah.
And that's like a published book that's somewhere for people to buy, right?
I'm not sure there's a physical copy of it. There was definitely at least a digital copy because that's how we found it. But
right.
Maybe there is even a physical copy of that, yeah.
Dude, if there is, you gotta buy that. That's like goes in the archive, the Omnerod archive, you know? So that's that is an insane story.
And also
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, this is you.
Also another story I think is kind of cute is I got an order from a gentleman on Bandcamp who bought a few records from us, and his address was like 2 houses away from mine. He was living in my street. And unfortunately, it was like right before I moved away, but still I hit him up. I was like, oh, dude, you're living in the same street I'm living in. And he actually is a guy that keeps coming up to a lot of shows and festivals. And I still see regularly, and we have a chat when we see each other. Very, very nice guy.
That's so wholesome.
He will recognize himself if he watches this. Like him a lot.
Hey, there you go. Shout out to Maurizio. If you're not Maurizio, just swipe. Everybody else? Wait, no. If you're not Maurizio, swipe. But Maurizio, this is for you, baby.
This is for you, man.
Yeah. I have something similar. There was a guy when we lived in Arizona, and we were still putting together our own orders locally in my apartment, basically. There was a guy who lived in the next town over from us. And so on like a Saturday morning at 10 a.m., I just drove there. And I was like, hey, man, here's your Kardashev order. And he's like, what? And I was like, yeah, dude, I mean, I figured I'd save money on the shipping and put it into gas instead and kind of enjoy the weather and just, I don't know, come over to your house. So here you go, dude. He's like, this is crazy.
He knew what you looked like? He recognized you?
Yeah, he did. He just, he's like, whoa, dude, this is so cool. Especially because like back then we were still playing locally. Like up until 2015, we were still trying to do like the local circuit, like the Weekend Warrior tours, stuff like that. So these were people, when we did have a release, they would just come out and watch us do the album release or something. You know what I mean? So this was a long time ago. So that's kind of cute that you had a guy live right down the street and that I drove a dude over. That's my cute story.
Yeah,
okay.
That's very cute indeed.
Here's a rapid fire question for you. Finish the sentence. Prog metal needs more
women.
Whoa! Okay, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting you to be like synth or like more better production or something like that. But
I mean, women is the word that came immediately, but I would say minority representation in general.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I think minority representation is a good call out, and I'm not going to try to go out of my way to like name a bunch of bands that are already kind of like leading that charge, but I'll do some research later and put it in the description. For those of you that are listening and watching, if you're curious about the bands that I have found who are representing minorities, I'll put it in a playlist and you can check it out. That's a really good call out though, dude. Yeah, minorities in general. I was thinking about like in the prog space, prog as a word in general just kind of means like advancing what is already understood. It's like progressive, to go beyond the standard by which it already exists. I think that a lot of bands who wind up getting some kind of notoriety are in a small way doing that. They're doing something just different enough that they break through the sort of mold of what people expect a genre to offer, right? So that's a cool way to call that out. I think going to festivals like the ones you mentioned earlier, Prog Power, Euroblast, Arctangent, these types of progressive festivals, while maintaining an open mind, could introduce you to a lot of those like genre bending, but also minority representing people or bands rather that are out there, because they're also getting those opportunities in the live space, which is super rad.
Absolutely, and I think it's still a symptom of metal in general not being very diverse, because I think as a subgenre, prog metal is doing pretty good and doing better and better, both in terms of bands and audience representation.
Yeah.
But there's, I mean, I go to shows for like seeing bands from all different kinds of genres, and when you go to see shows like jazz shows or pop shows or rap shows, the audience is a bit more diverse than what we have in the metal genre in general. So I think it's getting better, but it's not quite there yet.
And just to clarify, are you saying both band member composition needs diverse representation, or fandom in the prog space needs more?
So I think fandom better representation within fandom will eventually bring better representation in bands, because you first need to be a fan of the music before you decide to pick up an instrument, and I think people feel maybe more welcomed if they see that the audience is not as is more eclectic, and that they're represented in the audience and in the bands as well. If it's like a circle, a positive circle thing, like a feedback loop, you know. If things start getting better, they'll get better and better. But I think it starts first with the fandom and the audience.
Yeah, I
and making people feel safe in those audiences as well, because I can imagine that being not represented at all in these audiences and coming up to a gig or a festival might be a bit intimidating.
Absolutely.
For someone.
Absolutely. I think intimidation is probably the biggest factor when representation doesn't feel like it's there. I myself can't speak from like very much personal experience, but I can tell you the hesitation that I feel when somebody I know here in Germany invites me to go to like a festival. I think one of the things I do think to myself is, I'm not very good with the language. I'm going to feel out of place and kind of isolated and not really like so warmly welcomed. Have I felt that way? Not necessarily, but that's a fear that I have internally. So I can imagine extrapolating that into people who kind of wear, whether they want to or not, their identity everywhere that they go, and feeling like they're not being represented is that much more impactful to them. So that's a huge call out. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that, man. This is part of the privilege of talking with other musicians, is kind of seeing their perspective on what needs to change, and also like what's doing well and what should stop and stuff like that. I actually had I felt
the same way with you. We had several chats about different topics, and I felt the same way.
Yeah, well, that's the chats from us working together, right? Like from that portion of it.
Yeah, and meeting up for a coffee
dude,
in Brussels.
That's one of my bucket list things, is that because I work with bands that I sincerely like, it is like a bucket list for me to meet them all one day and like get a selfie and be like, yeah, dude, this is the cool dude whose music I liked really so cool. much. I found a way to work with them. You know what I mean? I actually had a conversation with a different musician the other day where we were talking about basically something that we think needs to change in the music world, and that is drawing a line with what is and is not acceptable in certain capacities. And the one that we were specifically discussing was whether or not bands identify themselves as an ideology, and when they go to perform somewhere, it is the job of your band and you to kind of at least do some kind of research into which bands are playing, and if they have like an ideology that they're trying to promote, and if it is one that is not inclusive. And I'll just say it, even though social media is going to hate it. Nazi bands, why are we still booking those? Why are we still allowing hatred to be perpetuated into a space that is trying to be more inclusive? I mean, we just said we need more minorities, but there's still very rare instances of like bands with hatred ideologies being booked into festivals, which is a huge flag to those people saying, hey, don't come here. Yeah. And I don't want to play at that festival.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a very good point you bring up. And that's something I've never, ever done, which is go through a lineup or of a gig we're playing or a festival or anything, or even maybe a festival I'm attending. Like if there are bands on there that I don't know, I'm not going to do like background search on them. But that's something that could be relevant for everyone to do in general. That's a very good point, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I would hope that at some point in the future, bands add to the list of things that they unfortunately are responsible for these days, which you and I have talked at length. They have to add to that list, do your due diligence with the people that you're unfortunately going to have to background check and associate with for the rest of your career potentially if you don't do your due diligence. Like if you were invited to play Prog Power, no shade on Prog Power or anything, and they happened to book a band that was representing an ideology that was built around hatred. One, shame on the festival. Two, shame on the bands who continue to perform at the festival, because in a way that's saying I'm okay playing a festival that supports this ideology. Yep. And I know that for some people it's like cringe to talk about or to think about, but it's like that's your problem. Like this needs more awareness. This needs to be brought to the forefront. And so for bands who still do that, we kind of have to hold them accountable now and say, hey, that was a bad move. Like you messed up. Yes, the festival messed up, but you also now need to be responsible in the future and research the bands that you're going to be playing alongside of. I think that's pretty reasonable to ask of bands, personally.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's always a very complicated discussion in some ways as well, because, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like the Nazi band example is like pretty explicit and there's no like ambiguity around that. But then there are major acts. Like, for instance, Hellfest booked some bands and artists regularly these last few years who have been accused of stuff, and maybe in some cases they were not incriminated eventually, or the law thought it was not a crime, or there's a very gray area. And then, like, the accountability you mentioned is not like just figuring out whether they're criminals or not, or it's whether like you agree with something they've done or said which might be legal, and that's an even more complicated problem, and that's something that people have a harder time now as well, like on socials, like people might accuse you of being woke very quickly because of stuff like that, or not being, like, if you're not like pointing the finger at those people, like, people might accuse you of being complicit as well. So it's very complicated, I think, when it's not as clear as a band being labeled, for instance, as a Nazi band, but just people being, in my opinion, bad people, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a spectrum of things that we can all individually identify as something we don't want to be part of our life. But then there are the glaringly obvious, easy to name forms out there that we have to stop it lest it have room to perpetuate and to grow. And so in your example, which I'm not 100% sure about, this is news to me, if a festival like Hellfest is putting on bands that have accusations, that's harder for me to be the judge on, because an accusation is not an incrimination, right? Kind of like you just said.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to forego an opportunity in front of thousands of people where my band can then grow. But at what cost? What is the cost of continuing my band with my opportunity individually, even in light of this hatred that's being perpetuated? I don't think I have the answer, but I will make that decision when I come to that bridge.
Yeah, it's a decision to be made. Yeah,
and it must. I
mean, some of the examples I'm thinking of is this black metal band. I'm not sure which one it was, and one of the members that was in that black metal band was rightfully not only accused but convicted in the 90s of being violent towards gay people, I think.
Okay.
And so it's something that was a long time ago but still happened, and that band was playing in Hellfest. The Till Lindemann thing as well, like there was a lot of conversations about what has happened in Rammstein shows, and even though there was not like any conviction because of that, some people could argue that it's still not very cool.
Absolutely.
And those are some of the examples of those gray areas I was mentioning. But I mean, that's a decision that everyone needs to make when they're facing that. When you're on that bill.
And I think the other part of it is owning, to own the outcome of the decision that you make. So if you make the decision to play the festival in light of this information that you don't agree with, but is also now in front of you, unfortunately, you're going to have to live with that decision. And as we say, you're going to lie in the bed you've made. And so in doing that, you might be inadvertently committing a sort of like career suicide, a career like, early end. And that's kind of, in a way, I'm not trying to glorify it, but that's kind of in a way, a learning opportunity that you've made a mistake. Hopefully you know why. And now you're going to have to start over or continue forward with this branding. It's kind of, it's so complicated and hard to articulate that I think more people should think about it more often, and then act on it when they're confronted with it. Outside of that, it's an unfortunate truth of our reality these days.
And I think showing good faith after the fact is very important as well.
Absolutely.
Because shit happens. And as we said, it's very complicated. But I mean, if anyone's apologetic afterwards and explaining why that happened, personally, I'm very much willing to like forget about it, and I would be like, okay, that's cool that they addressed that in general.
Yep, and to apologize and to own that they made a mistake doesn't mean they're absolved of it. I'll still have like the kind of one eyebrow up every time I hear that band. I'll be like, oh, wasn't that the band that, I don't know. But that's more than just being immediately blacklisted for never owning the mistake that you made in light of the other people who might not have benefited from it. So,
agreed.
Dude, thank you so much for talking with me today. I'm happy to hear about Omnerod, the history, kind of the way that you approach things with vocals and guitar, and the configuration of the band, and your hopes to play live at festivals in the future, or maybe do some headliner tours with the Immensal Rise as part of the set list. Thanks for answering my questions and letting me share my
pleasure.
stories and stuff. That's really cool, dude.
Thanks,
I've got, you're very welcome. I've got one final question for you, and then we'll say goodbye. And that is, what is the most unexpected influence on your music?
Holy shit, that's a very unexpected question.
Well, it's a random one.
I would say probably 2000s pop music. I grew up on Nelly Furtado and Timbaland and Pink and Justin Timberlake and all those guys that created pop music that sounded cynical and sometimes heavy and evil. I mean, listen to the instrumental stuff of like Nelly Furtado songs or Timbaland productions or Britney Spears even. Like some of this stuff was really banging, and I think I still carry that to this day. Like when I listen to that kind of pop, I'm like, yeah, that's gnarly. That's a good groove, and sometimes I think it transpires into the stuff we write.
I think your appreciation for that music is why in the early 2000s we saw so many metal covers of that kind of music, is because other people saw it too and they were like, but what if I play that with like this kind of drum groove on guitar? And then we got those cool things.
And it's funny nowadays to kind of identify what I liked as a child in those songs, like on a theoretical level. Like, for instance, like recently I've been listening to Man Eater by Nelly Furtado. And the instrumental, like the beat of it, is basically like a chromatic descent, and stemming from like a minor chord. And when I was a child, I was like, "Oh yeah, that's spicy, that's evil." I feel like hardcore listening to that. And nowadays, I'm just like, okay, that's like a chromatic rundown in a pop song, and that's pretty sick, actually.
That's so sick that you identified with that. It's cool that you chased that down, and now today you're still appreciating it.
Yeah, that's cool.
We'll end it there. Is there anything you want to say to the people who are still here listening and checking it out? Where can they find you? What do you want to talk about? The next minute is yours.
So for now, you can follow us on socials and all the platforms, of course, Spotify and Tidal and everything. I would just like to say as well that we're going to keep moving on this year with writing new stuff and probably playing live as we discussed. But the next album is on the way as well. And I would like to thank everyone that keeps supporting us nowadays, that has been supporting us and showing appreciation and buying merch or not buying merch, just sending a message of love every once in a while and commenting on our stuff. Like it means a lot for us, and that's what's keeping us moving forward. So if anyone's listening to this and has been supporting us in any way, shape or form, then thank you. That's what I have to say.
That's great, man. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers.